Any reservations about sitting on the jury for a week and a half?
Well, I work too, but, they know where I'm at. I've already let them know what's going on there. So, no, I don't have a problem.
Where do you work?
Floor B&W, tonic plant.
Oh, okay. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Toy?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ms. Brooks, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. You can spend a week and a half here, is that correct?
Yes, I work, but I told him I might be off longer, I didn't think so.
Okay. And I think you had another job before. Are you retired now working at,
No, I just work at Goulds, I'm not retired, it's a fact.
been working at schools? Okay, good. All right. The court's gonna explain to you, it has a little bit, and I'm not gonna go into it, but proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Have you heard that concept before from the judge? Okay. So as you sit here today, you heard this is a murder case, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so the facts are serious, and you understand that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As he sits here today, is Lonnie Sheets a client? Guilty or not guilty?
I don't know.
You know what he's presumed to be at this time?
Yes, I've heard that.
What is that? What's he presumed to be?
I don't know.
Not guilty.
Not guilty, yes.
Okay. And that it's a state's burden. It's sort of like when you take presumption of the evidence, and you talk about proof beyond a reasonable doubt and burdens. I basically is if the state or somebody makes an accusation and points a finger at you, you would expect them to bring up enough information and facts to prove it to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Does that sound fair to you?
Yes.
Okay. So as he sits here today, nobody's giving you any facts at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, just, I've never seen it in the paper,
I understand.
but yeah,
And you can read a lot of things in the
That's
paper, right? That doesn't necessarily mean they're accurate. Is that correct?
that's right.
Okay. And you didn't know any of the witnesses in this case?
Yes, sir.
All right, good enough. I appreciate that. Thank you. And have you lived here in this area for how long?
All my life.
All your life? Okay. Familiar with the Oak Hill area?
No,
Not really?
not really. I mean, I know where it is. I know some people down there, but I live more out of Jackson up towards Wellston.
Up towards Wellston. Good enough. And Mr. Ray, you're from Wellston, is that correct?
I live there, I live there now, yes. I'm
You
not
lived there how
from
many
there,
years?
probably 8, 9 years now.
Okay. And you understand the presumption of innocence. You've been on both sides, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you deal with this, you understand that sometimes, I've done this for a long time. I've done this, now 43 years I've been doing this. I was a prosecutor for, can I take this off, Judge?
Yes, while you're speaking, sure.
Thank you. I'll stay away from everybody. I was prosecutor over in Athens County for 15 years when I started out. And so it's Chris, Colleen, on this task. And we had the burden of proving cases beyond reasonable doubt. And since then, I've been in private practice. I do criminal cases, and I also do divorce cases. And the nastiest cases are my divorce cases.
I'm just
In particular. So what we deal with this is when we're looking at somebody, you understand that presumption of innocence, my client does not have to testify. You understand that?
Yes,
I could sit there and Andy, a young associate, we could sit there and just fall asleep, not do anything. And if the state didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, at the end, you heard everything, all the evidence that came in. At that point in time, what would your verdict have to be if you didn't believe that they proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt?
yes,
Would you hold it against him that he didn't have to testify?
no,
Okay. Well, I did this a long time, and I need to ask, it's Mr.
Chandler?
Chandler,
Yes, sir.
does that bother you that if the defendant, in this case Lonnie Sheets, doesn't testify, are you gonna sit there and go, wait a second? If it was me, I'd be testifying. Is that gonna bother you?
No, sir.
Okay. Tell me why not?
What's his right? And if it's the state's burden to prove him guilty, he can say something to incriminate himself.
Okay. Or he might not be that bright either. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to testify for myself.
I understand. You know, I do some DUI cases from time to time, and they come up and the officer says, oh, when I asked him for his license and registration, he fumbled, and that showed that he was guilty. You understand that there might be another reason why the person was fumbling?
Nervous.
Yeah, nervous with the lights. And is it Mr. Delay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Delay, I don't have a question here from you, so I'm gonna ask you some
Sure.
more questions. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for picking on everybody, and it's difficult to talk when you're in front of a jury or in front of other jurors. They say the most difficult thing in the world is to talk in front of other people, and it makes everybody nervous. I've been doing this a long time, and my mouth still gets dry from time to time. So you pretend like you're talking to me, and there are no right or wrong answers. If you're sitting there going, hey, this is a murder case, I can't wait to convict, tell me that. That's okay if you want to say that. But tell me your feelings, because I need to know that, because I'm defending Mr. Sheets on extremely serious charges. We've got competent prosecutors on the other side who do a good job, and they're going to try to do the best they can in this case. Where are you from? Where do you live?
Here in Jackson.
Okay. How long have you been here?
My family's from here. We've been here since '96.
Okay. How old are you?
36.
Do you have any children?
Yes.
Are you married?
Yes.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a lab scientist
Oh, where at?
at Adena.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. And is your wife working?
Yes.
Okay. And how come you didn't bring
I thought I sent it in, but I must not
That's
have.
okay. That's all right. And when we talk about proof beyond a reasonable doubt, whose burden is that?
The states.
That's these guys.
Yep.
What do I have to prove?
You don't have to prove anything.
I'm coming in, was the first thing you said when you came in here, I wonder what he did. Didn't anybody think that? I'm sure you did, right?
Yeah.
Wonder what he did. Instead of thinking, I would think that. Instead of thinking, why is the state prosecuting a perfectly innocent person without proof at this time? You understand that?
Sure.
That's one way to look at it. That's my. Can you look at all the evidence in this case and put the burden where it belongs?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever bought a house?
Yes.
When you bought your house, did you get a title search done?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you do that?
To make sure everything was good to go before
Did you get title insurance?
yes.
Okay. And why did you do that?
I insure everything just to be safe.
Just to make sure. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when you bought the house, you didn't just come in and say, oh, that looks nice. Hey, here's whatever amount of money
Mhm.
I'm going to owe for the next 30 years. You inspected it. Is that correct?
Yes.
You checked it out. Is that correct?
Mhm.
And you made sure that the deal you're being offered was a fair one in your regard. Is that correct?
Yeah, I trust the professionals that do that for a living to trust their word on if it was a solid thing to do. Yeah.
We're going to have professionals testify in this case.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, it's the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. And quite frankly, they're a very good department. They're led by an excellent sheriff. I shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. Nice people. But you understand that sometimes that when you get charged, you sometimes have laser focus on one aspect of the case. Do you see that happen?
Sure. Yeah.
In your case, as a lab, is your lab work exact?
We follow policy procedure and things like that, but there's always variables with different texts and things like that, sure.
In the criminal law, you understand there can be a lot of variables, okay? Some of those variables might be the credibility of a witness. You understand? When somebody comes in and swears under oath, does that mean they have to tell the truth?
They should, but that doesn't mean they have to.
It should. Does everybody agree with that? They should, doesn't mean they have to. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you look at their motive? Could you be able to look at their motive for testifying? What they may have to gain or lose in wrestling to their testimony? Okay. In reference to police officers, they don't really have a motive, but sometimes they have a feeling or an inclination that they were right. And they might not do testing or do things that they should have done that didn't support their theory. Not that they're bad people, but that didn't support the theory. Have you seen that before, sir? Can you understand?
I understand it, I haven't seen it directly, outside of crime documentaries and things like that, so.
Okay. Mr. Chandler, what do you think about that? That police officer does their job. It's sort of like you get pulled over DUI, you're fumbling, they get laser focused on you. Or it's a case where they found something illegal, say an open container in the car, and decided to charge both people with it, when it was only belonged to one. Can you see that happening in a case?
Tunnel vision, absolutely.
What's that?
Tunnel vision,
Tunnel vision.
absolutely.
All right. Can you look at that when you hear all the evidence and you go back in as a collective, as a whole? That's what you do as a jury. You're not one mind. You come in and you discuss things and you talk, you collaborate, and you tell what your feelings might be. Well, I understand you don't want to be here, Ms. Stickler, I understand that, but I know you're making an effort to do this, and I know it's difficult. When I have to take 2 weeks out of my schedule to do this because I have other work to do, it's very difficult to do, and you're doing it without notice. And we appreciate you being here. The court will consider what has to happen with you in reference to your work in the future. But if you get selected, what I'm asking you is this, and if you can't do it, just tell me. If you're going to be in a hurry, if you've got things on your mind that are not going to make you, in this case, because it's so long, a juror that you would want to have in the case against you, just tell me. Is this a case where you should not be serving as a juror?
I wouldn't pick me.
Say that.
I wouldn't pick me on my case
Okay, I understand. And why is that? Tell me why.
because I'm under a lot of stress right now.
I understand. And I can see that. And it might influence, you ever see 12 Angry Men?
I have.
Okay? Remember the one guy who was busy, wanted to go out and see the ball game? Remember that guy? Now, you're not like him. You have a good excuse. You have a job. You have a business. But in this case, it's going to be a situation where it's just so much on your mind that you can't sit here and weigh the facts fairly in this case because of the time crunch you're under.
I will do my best.
So if you're called, you can do it.
I'll do my best. I wouldn't shirk my to be here as a juror, but I am under a lot of stress right now.
I understand. And I appreciate you telling me that. I'm just concerned because I represent a client. And Lonnie Sheets is my client. And he's sitting here and we have to listen to all the evidence. And you're going to be able to do that and sift through it and consider and come back and render a verdict based on evidence alone.
Yeah, I understand to do that, but my mind is running through a whole bunch of things that I'm gonna do the minute that you recess this.
Okay, all right. No, I understand that. Just a few points here. There are going to be some gruesome photographs shown here in the course. Is that going to affect your judgment to say, look at these terrible things that I'm seeing? Are you able to sit there?
I don't know, I'll try.
Okay, you gotta do better than try because you're going to be seeing them up here on these
Yeah,
camera screens. You understand that? Okay. How about you, Ms. McCann? You do the same? Okay. Is Mr. DeLay, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. if I asked you for a job application and why you'd be a good juror, what would your answer be?
I see things as, I like black and white, so if it's clearly stated, I take it for that worth. I don't have any preconceived notions to Mr. Sheets or anything like that. There's been many people that have been tried for murder before that didn't commit it, and that's this. It's still the state has to prove that he did what he's being charged with. So, it's mainly I'm not biased in one way or another. So I'm just gonna whatever's shown, that's what I'll interpret as what happened.
Appreciate it. Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold? Where do you work at again, sir?
Floor B&W,
Okay. How long you been there?
21 years.
Okay. What do you like best about your job and what do you like least about it?
I do the maintenance scheduling for the work and everything that's getting done. I enjoy doing that.
Okay. So you're the guy in charge, is that correct?
Well, there's more above me, but I'm a little below them.
I got that. Did you have service in the military service too?
No, I did not.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
Elston.
From where?
Elston?
Okay. Okay. When you came in, did you think the first thing when you saw him, you say, hey, wonder what he did? Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you set that aside and think, hey, what are they gonna be able to prove against
Yes,
Lonnie Sheets?
I said it.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I hadn't, though, I mean, I have never heard of the case or anything, so this is the first I've heard of it. So.
You know, it's just a different concept. You know, if you're in Iran, North Korea, Russia, you're presumed guilty, okay? And you don't have a right to a jury trial. And that's why it's so important here, under our Constitution, that the state, and I did it for 15 years, and it's not an easy task. You gotta convince all 12 people of somebody's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. What if it came down at the end and you said, look, I like my fellow jurors, you know, they seem nice, but I'm telling you what, I think this one point they didn't convince me on, and I have a reasonable doubt in this situation. Could you hold out?
Yes, I could. You gotta express what you believe in, what you think is the truth, even to your other jurors in there.
Okay. Have you had any occasion to see people with tunnel vision, as explained here before?
Yes, I have.
It's not that they're wrong, it's just that you've got a theory, you think about it, and it's not that you're a bad person, you just ignore other things that might come to light. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. When you judge a person's credibility, you think it's important that their story makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. If something's left out of their story, would that give you a problem?
You have to have the facts. The facts have gotta tell you what you believe in.
If a person you're gonna hear evidence from the witnesses here, that they were engaged in drug trafficking on the night of the occasion. I'm not gonna go into any more detail than that. How would that affect you if that's the state's witness? Tell me about that.
It could have low influence, on my opinion.
Stiffer, what do you think about that?
They're committing an illegal act and they're trying to say, believe me.
Okay, so you would take a look at that, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you're from the maps department.
Yes.
Used to use you guys all the time, okay? It's a great department to have, but you work on the civil end, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So if you listen to this, and the maps guys I deal with are real exact, is that correct?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Well, that's for sure. If you're off a little bit, they're calling back, you better get this deed right, Mr. Toy. You know, that's what they're telling me. Is that what you do too with the maps department?
But sometimes we'll look over the dates and stuff like that.
I understand. Okay, so I don't mess with you guys, because you guys know what you're doing. But can you understand when we're dealing with a situation where you have people, human beings come in and testify, that it might not be so exact?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Scientific testimony, if there's a lack of it, if there's a lack of scientific testimony, would that mean something to you?
Yes.
It's a lot different when I started. When I started, we had no DNA. Nothing like that. A lot of people thought there were dinosaurs when I started. There weren't, okay? But I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen the changes in our law and the perceptions that we deal with. But everything still remains the same. The state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. They have the burden of persuasion. He has the right, not like China, Russia, North Korea, to remain silent. That might be my choice rather than his. Is that a problem? If it is, just tell me. Say, hey, come on. I want him to testify. If he doesn't testify, I'm gonna find him guilty. You gonna say that to me?
No, it's not that, say otherwise.
All right. You understand you're not even allowed to discuss that in the jury. Why didn't he testify? Why didn't he take the stand? You're not even allowed to discuss that. Can you not discuss that if the judge says that?
Yeah.
Okay. What's something so important for you that you needed to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt before you did it? Buying a house?
Building a house, but yeah.
Building a house?
Yeah,
Okay. You're married?
yes,
Getting married?
already.
Wanting to find out a
Oh,
little bit
yeah,
about the
yeah,
person, right?
Yes,
Dairy Queen said, let's get married today, right?
No.
Okay. You checked into it. She probably checked into you more, right? Is that about right?
that's right.
Okay, I understand. If I'm excited, okay? And so you'll see me in the course of the trial jumping up and down. I've got a lot of respect for the prosecutor, a lot of respect for the sheriff's office. If I'm doing something that offends you, because maybe I'm too aggressive or I get too excited.
Ain't nothing wrong about being emotional.
Okay, I get emotional too, I can't help it. Is that gonna be a problem for you?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna let Andy do some of this. This is his first real trial. And he's Judge Grilla's boy over from Benton County. Anybody play baseball with him back in the old days?
I went to school with him.
You went to school with Judge Grillo?
Mhm.
With Newt here, right?
Yeah.
That's how he's known then? All right. So, he's still a sports nut today, I'll tell you that. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have any other issues, and I appreciate you listening and talking to me. And I pass for cause, Your Honor. Thank you.
The state passed the policy.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sort of a little bit of a different jury selection. Typically, you'd all be in that box, and we'd have all the seats filled in the back. But with COVID and social distancing, I can only bring in limited groups. I've been bringing you in groups of 19, because that's the most people I can get in this room. So we have done the majority of the voir dire for your group today. But I'm asking that you come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, that you be here at 9, and we will do the very last part. Now, between now and then, I don't want you to read the paper, listen to the radio, television, internet, anything about this case, you stay away from. Now, people are going to ask you, hey, what happened today? You can't reach any decisions or judgments because you haven't heard any evidence yet. So, in other words, don't do anything about this case, don't do any investigation, don't read anything, don't talk about it. And we'll finish up your group's jury selection tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Are there any questions before I let you go? Yes, sir.
Back to work this afternoon.
I'm going to leave, that's between you and your employer. Okay. If there's nothing else, folks, I will see you tomorrow morning at 9. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan.